The White House is pushing back on a Congressional Budget Office report on the GOP health care bill. The Republican-controlled House passed the bill earlier this month, and they celebrated the victory with the president in the Rose Garden.
It was a revised version of the GOP's original plan, and it was voted on before the CBO's score was released. Now, that report released yesterday, and it says that 23 million more people would lose coverage compared to the Affordable Care Act. The CBO also projects the bill would reduce the federal deficit by $119 billion by 2026.
So let's bring in Washington Post reporter Kelsey Snell. She joins us now. Kelsey, you write in today's paper that Republican senators are already distancing themselves from these new numbers. Talk about what you're hearing on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, a lot of lawmakers are saying, particularly Republican senators, are saying this CBO score doesn't matter. All they needed was to know that they were within the right parameters. There's some really complicated Senate rules that kind of govern whether or not this House-passed bill could still meet these standards. So the Senate could have a lower vote threshold. Just 51 votes would allow a new health care rewrite to pass in the Senate. As long as this CBO report said it was okay to continue down that road, Republican senators just don't care what the House did. They want to write their own bill to their own standards, and they don't really view the House bill as much more than a guidepost.
So Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said that he really doesn't know what a final Senate bill will look like or how he'll get to those 50 votes. Explain to us what factions of the Senate are going to be the most problematic.
Yeah, you know, somebody yesterday, an aide was explaining to me that while the Senate doesn't have a Freedom Caucus, they do have their own factions, and some of those factions are regional. So you have people who are from states where Medicaid expansion went through. Those are states like Ohio and West Virginia, where the governors of those states decided that they wanted the people of the state to have access to this bigger, more expanded pool of Medicaid, mostly people who are single. And those people, you know, they don't want to have the rug ripped out from under them. So those people want to protect Medicaid. You also have people who are ideologically opposed to Planned Parenthood. Those people are not going to be in favor of any health care bill that doesn't ban federal money from going to Planned Parenthood. And then you have a completely different group of people who are mostly interested in just cutting premiums. And while everybody says that's their major goal, what they aren't saying is these premium-focused people, all they want to do is they want to remove some of these protections that are in the Affordable Care Act to cut premiums down. So you'll start seeing people breaking along those factions primarily in the Senate.
It's funny, a colleague of mine who's a reporter joked that she's old enough to remember when conservatives in the Republican Party loved the CBO because it would tell taxpayers how much something was going to cost, right? But Kelsey, you know, we talked about that Rose Garden celebration with the president after the House health care bill passed. That process is now moving through the Senate, as you say, and the reporting that you've done suggests that senators want the administration's help in crafting and selling this revised bill. Is that your take?
I think that they are more interested in the White House helping them sell it than helping them craft it. As I talk to the people who are leading this process, they very much feel that this is a job to be done by experts in Congress. So they're looking at people like Senator Lamar Alexander, who's chairman of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, a very mouthful name for a committee. But I think it is largely going to be written by him and Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and their staffs and some of the staff at the Senate Finance Committee. The Senate is a place where people really love and believe that they are experts. They believe that the policy writing should be done by the people who have done it for decades. And the White House just doesn't have the staff for that right now.
All right, so before we let you go, I want to get your take on an incident involving the Republican candidate in Montana, the special election with Greg Gianforte. He allegedly body slammed a journalist at his campaign headquarters. It was recorded. What's your reaction to what unfolded? And second, I want to know how you see this impacting the race at all.
So I've been reporting on this all morning, and the thing that we have been hearing is that about 37% of people had already voted in this race. So it's very difficult to see how this will have an impact. Though the response that we're getting from a lot of people is they feel that this is all part of a broader attack on the press by the Trump administration, and how that's trickling down to other parts of the Republican Party. There's a great amount of concern, particularly among these groups that look at press freedom, that this seems to be a trend, and that Gianforte, the candidate it in Montana is just part of a broader trend of Republicans feeling very uncomfortable about the pushback that they're getting from reporters about policies coming out of Congress and the Trump administration.
Yeah, Kelsey, Vlad and I were sort of discussing that earlier, and remember Steve Bannon calling the media the opposition party. Clearly there was a pivot at some place along the way that, and it seemed like it was much more popular to sort of target us.
Well, the president called the press the enemy of the people.
Right.
And what you certainly see in the statement that was released by the Gianforte camp, which is when they release a statement, they say that the reporter was a liberal reporter. Those are sort of, it seems like, is that a successful? I mean,
It's trigger words.
It's a trigger word, and you've said already, Kelsey, that the majority of the votes have come in already. But is that a smart political tactic?
You know, I think from what we understand, it'll be hard to tell until later tonight. We'll know a little bit more when there are exit polls and people can say what drove their votes. But there will be a certain number of people who find that messaging effective. But we are also seeing a large number of people on the other side who are activated by feeling uncomfortable with that approach of accusing the press for asking questions of being in some way biased. I think it's helpful in this situation for clarifying, the incident because there was audio. We could hear what happened there, and there was corroboration from the National Fox reporters who were there. And so I think in this situation, it may be a bit unique so that we have multiple views on the situation, not kind of a he said, he said.
Kelsey Snell from the Washington Post, always good to have you. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.